Hey friends, today we are going to talk about architecture. And architecture, as you know, is the study or design of buildings. And it connects to art in that it always starts with drawing. So here you see three very simple architectural drawings. The first one being of a house, the exterior, which is the outside view. This one looks like it could be a commercial type of architecture, and commercial means like buildings or storefronts. So just looking at the design of it, although homes could also have this kind of look, but just looking at the multiple levels and design, this looks like a commercial architectural drawing. And then architects not only design the exterior, but they also have to design the layout of what's going on inside the building and the layout. So this is an interior drawing of different rooms inside, it looks like, of a home. The earliest forms of stone architecture are the post and lintel construction. And basically, as you see here, posts would be, you've heard of probably posts in the ground, which would be two vertical stones, and then you'd have a horizontal stone placed on top. And the reason why this was so useful, even in early, very thousands of years ago, is it provided a shelter for humans in case of weather conditions or a place to rest. Here is Stonehenge, which is in England, which is one of the earliest forms of the post and lintel construction. And then Greek and Roman architecture also adapted this post and lintel when they were doing their columns, and as well as for the outside or the top structure on top of the columns to provide shelter. The lintel, which would be up here. Probably the most basic form of architecture design would be the cube. And here you have a very simple 2D drawing of a cube. A cube has 6 sides, but as you see when it is drawn, you usually only see half of the sides of the cube. 3 sides here, and then 3 sides, of course, that you can't see in the back, and then the bottom. Here is an architectural drawing of a stack of cubes, and then a simple building structure. Obviously, the larger cube is stacked on the bottom to provide more stability. Although now architects have really kind of, with new building materials, you can modify this where you can have larger cubes actually stacked higher on top of smaller cubes. One of the earliest forms of cube architecture was built by the Native Americans, the Southwest tribes, the Pueblo homes. These are the Taos Pueblo homes in New Mexico that were constructed out of adobe bricks, which is mud and water that would be dried out in the sun, and basically a nice stacked cube structure to provide shelter to the Pueblo Native Americans. And then in 1967, during the World's Fair in Montreal, which is in Quebec, Canada, they built something called Habitat 67. And Habitat is basically a home. You often hear it as a home for an animal, but it also could mean a home for a human being. So this is a series of apartment buildings that are actually a bunch of cubes that are stacked on one on top of each other. And which was so amazing at the time, as you see the way they stacked, it allowed for space in between. So the cubes are kind of stacked in all different ways and directions. So some of them, as you see, are kind of extending out, which is pretty amazing, which makes it almost look like building blocks, like a block structure. And then you see the cube in modern architecture. Many Modern homes that we see are very simple cube designs, sometimes with a lot of glass to provide for a lot of natural light. Some people really prefer the very simple, basic structure of the cube. It's really a personal preference, but it's definitely more of a modern style versus, say, living in a traditional type of home that might have a lot more detail or have a pointed roof and different structures other than just a cube. So here's two other cube structures. This is a ceiling that is cubed. You can see the natural light coming from the windows. And then some other modern cube buildings. This is a bunch of cubes that are stacked. This is an office building, I believe. This one in the center is the United Nations building, which is a bunch of just like modular cubes stacked together. And then this looks like a very simple cube home or office building with glass, part of the side being all glass for a lot of natural light, which is very nice. All right, friends, this hopefully will inspire you for our next activity, in which we are going to be constructing our own cube and making a form of architecture out of it. Could be a type of mini shelter. You have to decide. It could be as creative as you want it to be.